Julia's roses trembled in the November wind. Red petals caught afternoon sunlight. She stood on 5th and Madison corner. Around her, the city pulsed with footsteps and honking taxis. Julia remained still. She offered flowers to passersby who barely saw her. "Fresh roses! Beautiful roses," she called out. Her voice fought against urban noise. Just perfect for someone special. College students approached. Designer clothes marked them as inhabitants of a world Julia watched from outside. "Look at her trying so hard," sneered Amanda. She tossed highlighted hair over her shoulder. "Still here at 5 o'clock? She must think this is romantic." "I heard she's been selling roses for months," added Brittany with fake sympathy. "How pathetic. Can't even get a real job." "Look at those clothes," laughed a third girl. She pointed at Julia's worn coat. "She probably makes less in a week than we spend on coffee." Julia's hands tightened on her basket. Their laughter echoed off buildings. She kept her head down. Red roses for passion, white for purity, pink for gentle affection. Each flower carefully selected from the wholesale market before dawn. A thin, braided bracelet caught light on her wrist as she arranged stems. Original blue and white threads from childhood now faded. Newer blue strands woven through over the years. She never took it off. "Excuse me, miss," said a businessman in expensive suit. His tone dripped condescension. "How much for the whole basket?" Hope leaped in Julia's chest. $30 for everything, sir. They're very fresh to— $30? He laughed harshly. For wilted sidewalk flowers? Grocery stores sell better roses for half that. "These aren't wilted," Julia protested gently. "Just windblown. Look at the petals." "Listen, flower girl," the man said. His voice carried to nearby pedestrians who stopped to watch. "Nobody pays premium for charity flowers. Try $5. Maybe someone will pity you." Heat flooded Julia's cheeks. Snickers rippled through the crowd. The man tossed a crumpled $5 bill at her feet. He walked away. She stood surrounded by amused onlookers. "That was harsh," someone muttered. "She needs a real job," another voice added. "This is just sad." Julia bent to retrieve the money. $5 wouldn't cover her costs, but it was something. She smoothed the bill carefully, tucked it into her coat pocket. "Don't let them break your spirit, honey," said Mrs. Rodriguez. The elderly newspaper vendor approached with kindness etched on her face. "It's okay," Julia replied softly. Her voice wavered. "I'm used to it." "No one should get used to cruelty," Mrs. Rodriguez said firmly. "You bring beauty to this corner every day. That matters." "Sometimes I wonder if I'm fooling myself," Julia admitted quietly. "Maybe they're right. Maybe I should find something practical." "Beauty isn't practical, mija, but it's necessary. The world needs people who believe in lovely things." Mrs. Rodriguez's words brought comfort. They couldn't change Julia's reality. Afternoon wore on. She sold 3 roses for $8 total. Barely enough for dinner. Nothing for rent or art classes. The sun began setting. It painted the sky in flower shades. Soon she'd pack up, walk home to her studio apartment, count meager earnings, wonder how to make tomorrow better. Then she noticed something. Across the intersection, a man stood alone, early 30s. His posture suggested loneliness. Shoulders hunched, head down, hands deep in expensive coat pockets. He crossed the street, past her corner. Julia glimpsed his face. Handsome features shadowed by sadness. Eyes that saw nothing despite looking ahead. He moved with mechanical precision, going through motions without being alive. Something stirred in Julia's chest. Recognition. She knew that loneliness, that invisibility. Without thinking, she selected her most perfect rose, deep red bloom, velvet petals, strong stem. "Sir," she called out. She hurried after him. "Excuse me." He turned. Surprise flickered across his features. Julia approached with the rose extended. "This is for you," she said simply. Her smile came from somewhere deeper than politeness. He stared at her hand. "I'm sorry?" "A rose," Julia said gently. "Free. You looked like you needed something beautiful today." "I couldn't take your flower." His protest was weak. His eyes stayed fixed on the bloom. You're trying to make a living. I'm trying to share beauty, Julia corrected softly. Sometimes that matters more than money. He studied her face intensely. Something in his expression suggested he saw more than a street vendor. Why? He asked quietly. Because everyone deserves flowers, Julia replied. Beauty shouldn't be earned or bought. It should be given freely, slowly, carefully. He accepted the rose. His fingers brushed hers briefly. Julia felt a connection spark. Two solitary souls recognizing each other. Thank you, he said. His voice carried unidentifiable emotions. More than you know. Take care of yourself, Julia replied. She stepped back toward her corner. Something about this moment felt different, more meaningful than her usual acts of generosity. She'd connected with someone whose loneliness mirrored her own. Behind her, Marcus Way stood motionless. He held Julia's rose. The flower girl's kindness stirred something deep in his chest. Ancient memories of warmth and generosity, of being seen as worthy when the world treated him as invisible. The way she'd given without expectation reminded him of someone. A family who'd taken in a scared 12-year-old boy, fed him soup, let him sleep on their couch, made him feel human when he'd forgotten what that meant. Somewhere in the city lived the family who'd saved him. For 20 years, he'd tried to find them. Occasional visits to social services offices, walking through old neighborhoods hoping something would look familiar, asking former caseworkers if they remembered a family with a girl named Julia. But without a last name, without concrete details, his searches always led nowhere. Especially the little girl, Julia, who'd shared her crayons and drawn him pictures of flowers, who'd made friendship bracelets for them from blue and white thread, who'd promised they'd always remember each other. Marcus reached for his wallet. From behind business cards, he pulled out a small, faded bracelet, child-sized. The original blue and white pattern, preserved exactly as Julia had made it 20 years ago. Tomorrow, he had meetings about the flower district development. But tonight, a stranger's kindness had forced him to confront a question he'd long ignored. What was the point of winning the world if it meant forgetting the humanity that had once saved him? The next day brought crisp air and devastating news. It rippled through the flower district like wildfire. Emergency meeting, called Mrs. Rodriguez as Julia arrived. Everyone needs to hear this. Vendors gathered quickly. Worry etched their faces. Development notice, announced Tony from the wholesale market. He held official documents. Way Industries is buying everything. 30 days to vacate. The words hit Julia hard. 30 days? Where will we go? Way Industries builds luxury condos, Tony continued. Owned by Marcus Way, billionaire developer. Julia's blood drained away. Marcus Way, a billionaire developer who destroyed communities like hers. The name meant nothing to her personally, but it meant everything to her survival. This can't be happening, she whispered. It's happening, Mrs. Rodriguez said sadly. Developers move in. Small businesses get pushed out. Communities disappear. But this is our livelihood, protested Maria. Some of us have worked here for decades. Money talks louder than history, Tony replied bitterly. The crowd dispersed. Each vendor returned to pack inventory. Julia stood frozen on her corner. Yesterday's brief encounter with kindness felt like a lifetime ago. Meanwhile, Marcus paced his penthouse office. Julia's rose sat in crystal beside development contracts. The space felt sterile despite the flower's presence. He'd barely slept. The flower girl's generosity had awakened memories he'd tried to bury under years of business success. Kindness offered freely. Beauty shared without calculation. Mr. Way? Patricia interrupted. The planning committee is here. Send them in, Marcus replied. His voice was hollow. Charts filled the conference table, projected returns, demographic studies, renderings of towers replacing shops. The flower market generates minimal revenue, explained the lead planner. Our development increases district value by 300%. What about current vendors? Marcus asked. They'll relocate. Standard urban renewal. Where? Market forces will determine that. Marcus stared at the charts. Cold numbers. No faces, no stories. No recognition that real people would lose their livelihoods. I need more time, Marcus said finally. Postpone the decision. The committee exchanged glances. Their CEO was developing sentiment. That afternoon, Marcus walked the district. He assessed the development site. Actually, he was drawn back to something he couldn't name. Found her on 5th and Madison, arranging flowers with graceful precision. Fresh roses! Beautiful arrangements, she called. Same warmth he remembered from yesterday. A businessman approached aggressively. How much for red roses? $3 each, Julia replied politely. 2 for $5. Highway robbery for street flowers. 50 cents each, take it or leave it. I can't sell them for that, Julia said gently. That wouldn't cover costs. Then go home empty-handed, the man sneered. Nobody pays retail for charity flowers. Marcus felt familiar anger building, the same rage he'd felt as a powerless child watching adults dismiss people who struggled. Then Julia did something extraordinary. You're right about the price, she said quietly. She selected a perfect white bloom. But this one's free. For someone in your life who deserves beauty. The businessman stared as if offered poison. I don't want your pity, he said harshly. It's not pity, Julia replied with unshakable grace. It's a gift. Sometimes we need reminders that beauty exists. The man looked around uncomfortably, walked away without another word, left Julia holding her rose. His loss, called Mrs. Rodriguez. Some people are too proud for grace. Julia tucked the flower back, her dignity intact. Marcus watched her movements, the gentle way she handled each stem. Something about her gestures seemed familiar, the tilt of her head, the careful attention to small details. That was beautiful, said a young woman nearby. I'll take 2 red roses. For my grandmother in the hospital? I hope she feels better, Julia said warmly. She wrapped the flowers carefully. These will brighten her room. As the customer paid, Julia reached for change in her pocket. Her sleeve pulled back slightly. Marcus's breath caught. A thin braided bracelet circled her wrist. The original blue and white threads from their childhood. Now faded but still visible beneath newer blue strands she'd woven around them over the years. His heart hammered against his ribs. It couldn't be. After all these years, could it really be her? As the customer left, Marcus stepped forward. Julia looked up. Warmth flickered in her eyes. It's you, she said softly. Yesterday's man. Did you enjoy your rose? I did, Marcus replied. His voice was tight with emotion he couldn't control. Most beautiful thing in my office. I'm glad. Sometimes we all need lovely reminders. Marcus couldn't take his eyes off her bracelet. His fingers trembled as he reached for his wallet. That's an interesting bracelet, he said carefully. Julia glanced down at her wrist, smiled softly. This old thing? I've had it forever. Made it when I was little. Actually, I made 2 of them. 2? My parents took in a boy for a few weeks. He was scared and alone. We became friends, made matching bracelets so we'd remember each other. Her expression grew wistful. I've added to mine over the years. Always hoped I'd see him again someday. Wonder what happened to him. Marcus's hand shook violently. He pulled the small, faded bracelet from behind his business cards. Child-sized. The original blue and white pattern, perfectly preserved after 20 years. He held it next to her wrist. The patterns matched exactly. Twin bracelets created by a generous child's hands. Julia stared at the small bracelet in his palm, then at her own wrist, then back at his face. Color drained slowly from her cheeks. Oh my God, she whispered. You're him, the boy who stayed with us. I've been looking for you, he said simply. For 20 years. Tears spilled down Julia's cheeks. I can't believe it. All this time. You kept it. I kept my promise, Marcus said softly. I remembered. They stared at each other, past and present colliding. The homeless boy and the billionaire, the generous child and the struggling woman. But Julia's expression was changing. Confusion gave way to suspicion, then to something that might have been betrayal. I don't think I caught your full name yesterday, she said carefully. Marcus hesitated. Truth time had arrived. Marcus, he said quietly. Marcus Way. The remaining color drained from Julia's face. The woman who'd shown him such kindness now stared with dawning horror. You're him, she whispered. You're the developer. You're destroying our district. Julia, I can explain. You're taking away everything we've built, she continued, her voice hollow with betrayal. Everyone I know. Everything I have. I was, Marcus admitted. Until today. Until I realized who you were. Pain and confusion warred in Julia's expression. So what happens now? Now, Marcus said, this district stays. Your home is safe. The morning brought gray skies and lingering uncertainty. Julia waited on her corner, half-empty basket. When Marcus approached, her expression showed wariness mixed with fragile hope. You said yesterday the district would stay, she said quietly, that our home was safe. But saying it and doing it are different things. You're still Marcus Way. You still have investors, board members, contracts to honor. No, Marcus said firmly. That plan died the moment I found you. I've spent 20 years looking for the girl who gave me a friendship bracelet. I'm not going to become the man who takes her home away. Mrs. Rodriguez approached from her newspaper stand. She'd been watching their reunion unfold. Julia, who is this man? This is Marcus, Julia said slowly. The boy my family helped 20 years ago. The developer who wants to buy our district. Mrs. Rodriguez's eyes widened. The same boy? The one with the bracelet? The same one, Marcus confirmed. He pulled out his wallet, hands trembling slightly, showed the small child-sized bracelet he'd kept for 20 years. Original blue and white pattern, perfectly preserved. Who never forgot the kindness shown by strangers. A small crowd was gathering, other vendors drawn by the emotional conversation. So what now? Asked Tony, joining them. You still planning to tear down our lives? Marcus reached into his coat, pulled out development contracts, looked at them for a long moment. These represent millions in profit, he said to the assembled crowd. Months of planning, investor expectations. He looked at Julia, at Mrs. Rodriguez, at the faces of people who'd built community in this small corner of the city. But they also represent destroying the place where I learned what family means. Before anyone could react, Marcus tore the contracts in half. Then quarters, paper scattered on the wind. What are you doing? Julia gasped. Choosing correctly this time, Marcus replied. 20 years ago, your family saved me. Today, I save yours. The crowd murmured in amazement. But you're investors, Julia protested. Your company will adapt. Way Industries has other projects. But there's only one flower district, only one place where my real family lives. Marcus turned to address the gathered vendors. The development is canceled, he announced clearly. This district stays exactly as it is. Your leases will be extended indefinitely at current rates. Cheers erupted from the crowd, embraces, laughter, tears of relief. There's more, Marcus continued. Way Industries Arts Foundation will establish a community grant program for local artists, small business improvements, educational opportunities. He looked directly at Julia. Starting with a full scholarship for a certain flower vendor who dreams of art school. Marcus, Julia whispered, this is too much. It's not enough, he replied firmly. You gave a homeless boy hope. Showed him what love looked like. Taught him that kindness matters more than survival. Mrs. Rodriguez wiped tears from her eyes. That little boy turned out pretty good, mija. He turned out perfect, Julia said softly. Just took him a while to find his way home. Marcus stepped closer. Julia, I need to ask you something. Yesterday, when you gave me that rose, did something feel familiar? Julia considered carefully. She touched her bracelet. Something did. Your sadness reminded me of the boy we helped, the same lost look in your eyes. And now? Now I see joy, she replied. Hope, the man you were meant to become. I want to become better, Marcus said, with your help. If you'll let me back into your family. Julia smiled, the same radiant expression that had comforted a scared child decades ago. You never left our family, Marcus. We just lost touch for a while. She reached into her basket, selected the most perfect red rose, deep crimson petals glowing in afternoon light. This is for you, she said with familiar grace. Not for the CEO or the developer. For Marcus, my friend, my family. Free, Marcus asked with a small smile. Everything beautiful should be, Julia replied. Around them, the flower district celebrated. Vendors hugged. Children laughed. Mrs. Rodriguez sold newspapers to curious passersby drawn by the commotion. So what happens now? Julia asked as the crowd began to disperse. Now you go to art school, Marcus said. Create beautiful things. I'll visit the district regularly. Make sure it thrives. And us? Marcus hesitated. I'd like there to be an us. If you're interested, we have 20 years to catch up on. Julia laughed. I'm interested. But slowly. Let's remember how to be friends again first. I'd like that, Marcus agreed. Start with soup? I still make extra, Julia said warmly. As afternoon settled into evening, Marcus walked Julia home to her studio apartment. They talked about the years between, his struggles through foster care, business school, building his company. He learned from Julia that her parents had passed away 5 years ago, and she spoke of her determination to honor their memory through art and kindness. They'd be proud of today, Julia said as they reached her building. They raised an incredible daughter, Marcus replied. Someone who gives roses to strangers and changes lives with soup. They showed you what family meant, Julia said. Someone who remembers kindness and chooses family over profit. That night, Marcus returned to his penthouse with a new rose for his desk. But the space felt different now. Not empty anymore. Not lonely. He'd found his family again, found his purpose, found the girl who'd taught him that real wealth wasn't measured in profit margins, but in moments of genuine connection. Julia fell asleep surrounded by art supplies she could now afford. Dreams filled with possibilities, canvases and galleries, and the knowledge that sometimes the universe responds to generosity with gifts beyond imagination. The flower district would thrive, art would flourish, and two hearts, separated by circumstances but never truly apart, would grow together again. 2 bracelets. One promise kept across 20 years. Proof that the most valuable things in life can't be bought or sold. They can only be given person to person, heart to heart, family to family.